some persons is a way to deal with stressful situations, and resisting smoking in itself is stressful. Relaxation techniques can also deal with these stressors. Practice relaxation methods, massages, listening to calm music, muscle relaxation, deep breathing, or meditation have been proven helpful.
Hello everyone, this is Issues and Answers, a production of the Government Information Service and the National Television Network, NTN. I am Primus Hutchinson. On our program today, we will revisit the 1938 Ravin Poisson disaster, one of the worst natural disasters to have occurred on our lovely island in past years. You may have heard over the years various accounts of this tragic event. However, on this program, we will present you with a new perspective regarding this 1938 disaster. With me is Madam Flora Girard. Mrs. Girard was only 14 years of age when this disaster occurred. Welcome to Issues and Answers, Ma Girard.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison.
Ma Girard, as a 14-year-old young lady at that time, how did you remember the community at that time? How did the people live and so on?
Well, I remembered Ravin Poisson at that time. It was a very quiet community, very quiet. And how I knew much about Ravin Poisson because of my father. He had a cousin who died, whose wife died in the disaster, and they bought some land. He had some land. He bought somewhere there. He was married to the lady. So he advised my father to buy land there too. So my father bought some land in that same Ravin Poisson area. So because of that, going to Ravin Poisson on and on, that is how I got to know much about Ravin Poisson.
Could you please describe the people, their ways, characteristics at that time? Were they very friendly? Were they outgoing? And
yes, they were very friendly. But I will tell you a little thing about them. There was one Malicien and Mafaswa. It was a war between them. And that same cousin of mine, my father, who married Mr. Francois's daughter, was always complaining to my father about the way they live. You know, always complaining. It was, you know, a war. This one, you know, a fight. And he said one day to my father, if the Lord don't put hand in with these people, the law will have something to do with them. I can remember he said so, because he used to come home. Being from Granivia, he used to come home with my father being very close. So I remembered he said that.
But eventually what happened? Did they come to some understanding?
No, no. The understanding was what happened.
They perished. Okay, oh, how unfortunate. Tell me, was Ravin Poisson a religious community? People go to church and so on?
Catholics.
Okay. What religion?
Catholic.
Catholic. There wasn't any church there at the time. So
no church. This is how some children survived. Those who left from Saturday to the cathedral in Castries and coming back on Monday, they survived. Okay. And those who did not go to church died.
So the people of that particular community would travel from
Ravin Poisson to Castries. Yes.
What was the transportation like at that time?
It was all walking.
Monsieur.
All walking, Mr. Hutchison.
Because that's a distance from Ravin Poisson to Castries.
Yes.
What about communication? I mean, in 1938, I wonder if people had telephone or anything like this.
One telephone I knew when I was a child at school. It was in a health center in Larissus. This kind of telephone rang.
Yes,
well, and that is only one for the whole of, I don't know for the Ravin Poisson, but for the Grand Riviere area, it was only one at Larissus.
And at that time, the people live, apart from the two individuals who had their little chican every now and then, people relatively lived.
Yes, the others lived well.
Now, another important thing I wanted to know was how did people made the living? Was it a farming community?
It was a farming, agriculture, farming, all of them.
Yeah, so people grew all sorts of crops.
All sorts of crops, and they had a lot of land at the same place where I told my father. They had the land there, yes.
So you used to travel with your people from Grenadier to...
Not very often, Mr. Hutchison. No, it was school, you know.
Yeah.
My father had a horse. When the cousin advised him to buy the land, because he had his land already in Grenadier. So when he advised him to buy the land, he had a horse. He used to travel on the horse from Wavin Paston proper, where you know there, about 3 miles inside to go to that place. It was so far, they used to call it Bishop.
Okay, so from the main
road to go in.
About 3 miles.
So he used to use his horse. But during the vacation, like it's not very much like Easter, but the summer vacation, he used to take my brother and I, because the others were small. In fact, we wanted to go. So he would put us on a bus very early, and we would wait for him in Ravin Poisson.
Okay.
And we would go there and spend the day, not every day.
Okay. You just mentioned bus, so not very often the transportation was not that thing at the time.
Then we had no bus. One bus was coming from Miku, Brooklyn. If you have a chance to get a thing with Brooklyn. And afterwards, Bertie Cox came with another one, Sunshine. Then we had one in Grenadier.
Okay, okay. Imagine you had your members of your family, your mom and dad. How many of your...
There were 8 of us. I was 14 and my last sister was 6 months.
Okay.
We did not have a grandmother. We had an adopted grandmother, but a very good father.
Okay, okay.
God bless him.
Okay, and you spoke about your dad. What was the relationship like with your father and the rest of the children? And if one knew you well, I mean, what
it was number one, Prime. It was number one. I don't think there is another father in St. Lucia like him. Because after the disaster, if I tell you, there were 7 of us, 7 families who lost their mother. 7 mothers. And my father was the only one, Stanislas Matthew, who really took care of us in school. The only one, yes.
We'll get to the real disaster itself later down the line. Majuel, we need to take a short break now, but we'll be back.
One of the 8 universally recognized rights of the consumer is the right to satisfaction of basic needs. This means that every consumer has the right to basic goods and services that guarantee survival. This right includes adequate food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education, water, and sanitation.
Welcome back. This is Issues and Answers. We are revisiting the 1938 Ravin Poisson disaster. It actually happened the month of November. And our guest, Madam Flora Majirad, as she is affectionately called Mafawa Maju, was only 14 years of age, a young lady, and she can remember vividly some of the things that happened. So as I informed you earlier, we are going to look at the disaster itself. Okay, Majura, could you please describe the day of the disaster, you know, what really happened?
It was bad weather, Mr. Hutchison, for days. In fact, we had not seen the sun. All the river was overflowing. It was very, very bad days.
But was it weather. It was unusual because was it an area where I think that area there, Ravin Poisson would be close to the rainforest. So would it be a community where rain would fall, you know, frequently? And
well, to tell you, I remember there was rain in Ravin Poisson. And not very much about Ravin Poisson than my place. But what I believe, Ravin Poisson had this kind of rain because of the same property my father had. And they could not go there because of the rain and the bad lil.
Okay.
Yes.
So the rain fell like...
It was falling in Grenadier, it was falling in Ravin Poisson.
So, and for days before
for days, 14 days we said.
Okay. So let us now paint a picture of the day itself.
What really happened? Nobody knew what would happen that same day. But I can remember my cousin Lion and the Nichols. There was a sound, he said, lion was living in the hill where he lives, and as if there was a kind of shaking the soil. And he even said when he was standing up, he would feel as if the ground is doing something. But when he referred that to my father told my mother said it was earthquake. Maybe it was an earthquake. But the day of the disaster itself, my father was sick. Nicholas, my cousin, was coming from Grand Riviere to give Cousin Lion my father's news. And Lion now came from his home, coming to these people to ask them about my father. And when they reached a distance, he saw the Nicholas coming with his hand on his head. That was the same